Hi, how's it going? I'm Ashley Rose. You can call me Ashley Rose Nova, or you can call me Ash. I'm with TWM News. We are now TWM Plus. This TWM Talks Music. I'm here with Vic Victor from the Koffin Kats. Vic, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's cold and snowy up here in Metro Detroit area, Michigan.
Ah, see, I'm still in Texas,
Yeah.
but I'm very familiar with snow because I lived in Atlanta, so I feel you on that. I do miss it though. I actually really like snow.
Yeah. Well, that's our these days when we tour, we most of our heavy touring is done in the winter time so we can avoid this weather. As you know, with us being down in Texas not too long ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually heading up to Ohio. So, from what I was told, there was snow there
Oh yeah.
right now.
Yep.
So, I was told just be prepared, dress appropriately. That's what I was advised. So,
Yep. Yep.
one thing, so what have you been up to? I know, I don't like to project and talk about, what's happened the past few years, but it's not avoidable. So, what have you been up to? What have the Coffin Cats been up to since, before the touring started?
Well, I mean, we spent we obviously it's with every interview that I've done, it's unavoidable talking about the downtime, the unscheduled downtime as I like to think of it, with it being the pandemic and all that. So we got through that, and we got through that. We put out a 6-song EP towards the end of it, and then when the venues started slowly but surely opening back up, we hit the road as soon as we could. Well, we hit the road when we knew that there wasn't going to be any more worries about things shutting down, because right before the pandemic, we lost 2 scheduled tours, and the amount of work that goes into booking tours, because everything we do is in-house, everything we do is DIY. It was a lot of work, so we didn't want to take the risk of booking another tour only to go, hey guys, sorry, we got to pull the plug again. And so the first I'd say the first year coming out of the all the shutdown and all that, the you could tell that the crowds were reserved. The people didn't want to be too close to each other, and on top of that, a lot of people weren't comfortable coming out yet. But now these the tours that we've been doing in the last half of last year and into the beginning of this year have been rock solid. Like it's great to see people coming out and celebrating live music again. And and if it but that to be said, I understanding that some people still aren't comfortable with being amongst crowds, and I get it, but it's cool to see live music did not completely die out.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always known about the Coffin Cats is that well, as a band, even, when you switched members, you were always about touring. I would say that proactively for over like 10 years. That's what y'all pretty much did, was a lot of touring. So I always wondered, I was like, well, how's that, for certain bands, it must be tough, especially during that time.
Yeah, I mean that was our touring. Touring is our main way of supporting this band and keeping this band going. With it's it pays the bills at home, and when tours don't happen, we go work regular labor jobs. Uh, the our merch guy is the owner of an irrigation company, and that's in the summertime we go install lawn sprinklers all summer and to make the ends meet, and then we hit the road in the wintertime. And that's kind of the what we've been doing for the last few years. And it's a great balance of I wish rock and roll could totally pay the bills and we could just tour, a few times a year and live off of that, but that's just not how it works in the real world. I mean, we were never an MTV band or anything like that. Everything that we've always done has just been organically grown from being out on the road, and we've been a touring band since 2000 2004. We started the band in 2003, and uh, by by the next year we were going coast to coast in the US. And then yeah, for a good portion of that time we were actually playing close to 250, 300 shows a year. And that was, we were basically living in a van at that point in time. But as we get older and we have families and wives and stuff like that, it's a little harder to live out of a van, as especially as we're all approaching 40. It was time to put the adult pants on and hunker down a little bit and be able to establish a home life as well. So.
I mean, that's understandable. I do a lot of traveling too, in general. So, gradually I think as you hit like your mid 30s, that's when you're like, I don't know about like, I'm kind of tired, a little bit tired from the night before, not sound like, old. I just like dated myself, but now everyone knows.
Oh, no. I mean, I, we are, we've, as a band, we've done our fair share of partying and everything, but it's funny now because we love playing the shows and everything. And then when everything's all packed up, we're like, all right, I guess we're going to go to bed now. And that's just how it is. But for us, it's more important that we're well rested and we're getting on the road at the proper time. I know it sounds completely uncool and unfun, but for us, it's more important that we focus on being able to give every town the best that we can give them. And so, like, when we're done playing a show, we pack the van up, head to the motel, and then get up in the morning, make the drive to the next town, and do it all over again.
It's okay. I think we all did our fair share of partying in our 20s, at least, back then. Um, I'm, I'm pretty excited as far as, I actually got to interview you because a lot of people don't know this, but I've mentioned it to a few people that you're actually one of my favorite vocalists of like all time. Like,
Oh, right on.
Yeah, you're like definitely one of my like top 5 vocalists. And, now that we've discussed everything with the tour, you want to talk about the EP that it's been out for a while, and I think it's probably some of the cleanest produced work from the Koffin Kats. So if you want to talk about that,
Sure.
I think it's an awesome EP. I really enjoyed it. It was a good, to me, it was a good mixture of, I would say like original, like in the beginning Koffin Kats to like up to Born of the Motor. So to me, it was very solid, very clean, but it had that influence of like when you first started.
So that being said, the way we look at it when writing music, especially now, is that we've covered the bases that we wanted to cover as a band, as far as all the, if you look back at all the past, I think 10 releases that we've done, we always wanted to not be a single genre band. Meanwhile, maintaining a cohesive sound so that if you heard the song, you'd know, oh, that's Koffin Kats. That being said, we're music fans too, and you can't ever get away from the idea of, man, I loved your band, I loved your guys' early material, and that goes for people say that about every band. So that's always in our heads of like, of course we've been around long enough though where you have people that like love the early stuff because that's what turned them on to us. And then now we have like our middle material that we're finding people have discovered us on, and people are like, I love that stuff. And so there's always that fine balance of, well, what direction do we want to take our sound next? And you can never go wrong though with harkening back to the sound that made you, the sound that you started with. And for us, it's a fun challenge to kind of go back and revisit those days and revisit, the influences that helped create that sound. And so with that EP, it was the first time that I was really able to um, produce something and have the production go the way that I wanted it to go. And the only reason that's happened was that I actually mixed it and produced it myself. And throughout our whole catalog of releases, nothing's ever turned out the way that I exactly wanted it to or pictured it, because you would leave it in the hands of somebody else to mix it, engineer it, and whatnot. And then after we put our last full length out, which was called Party Time in the End Times, and I believe that was in 2017, we're very happy with it. I was very happy with it, but I wanted to be able to write a song, and the way I heard it in my head, I wanted to be able to have it translate onto the CD or translate, through iTunes or whatever, however somebody's listening to it. So that's how that EP came about. And now we're in the process of wanting to put 2 more 6-song EPs out this year to celebrate our 20 years as a band. And I'm in the process actually of finishing up some demos. And after we're finished with this next run of shows, we're going to be going and recording the next EP. Actually right here in this studio, and then my tracking room is over there.
So now you have like Low Note Studios, right? So you record, of course, other people. Is this something that you've always wanted to do as far as like, musical engineering, producing?
Yeah. From the very first time that I was in a studio, pre-Koffin Kats, I always was amazed by being able to actually like put something through a microphone and then, wow, hear it back. That was always so cool to me. But I was always very busy with just life in general and Koffin Kats and everything, where it was like, oh, I don't have time to learn all that stuff. And I started utilizing our long tours to actually take the downtime during those tours and put it towards something productive. And throughout the 2010s, I did a lot of my own. I basically self-taught myself how to audio engineer and production and stuff like that. And now here we are.
I mean, I think that's cool. I think that's absolutely great. Like I said, I really love the EP. I just caught you live in Texas, in my hometown. A lot of people don't know, my hometown, but you and the Koffin Kats have always came to my hometown, which is actually Corpus Christi, Texas. And, the first time I ever actually experienced your music wasn't based off of hearing it. I actually saw you play live. And then I got interested. And then, of course, I think at the time Inhumane had just came out.
Okay. Yeah, that would have been 2005, I believe.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Quite some time, but still definitely one of my favorite albums. I love all the lyrics on it. As far as, talking about lyrics, what is your songwriting process? Because are the lyrics actually based off of, and I've always wanted to ask you this, and Tommy, but Tommy's not here, but I'm sure he would be okay with
I can probably speak for Tommy.
Exactly. I'm sure he would be totally cool with it.
I've spent most of my life with Tommy, so I'm pretty sure I know how he would answer it anyway. So
so Inhumane stood out to me a little bit more than the first, which is the self-title Koffin Kats album, because I felt like the lyrics had more meaning to them. They were a lot deeper. With, of course, the traditional Koffin Kats sound. What is your songwriting process? Are they based off of actually what's going on, or is it based off of stories, or do you just go with the tone and the melody?
So the when it comes to writing a Koffin Kat song, we start with the music first. And how we would have wrote back then would have been at the practice space, bouncing riffs back and forth to each other. And then finally until something stuck, and then we made a song, and then I'd go home. I'd go home with a cassette tape from that, because we actually had the old cassette tape recorders and stuff set at practice. I'd go home with a garbled sounding cassette tape and just think of words that would work, or think of a theme, like say Chainsaw Massacre. Okay, there's something popped into my head at that point in time, was like, oh well, let's write something based roughly on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Actually, I think that song in particular was based more close to the movie that was called Leatherface that came out in the early 90s. That being said, though, get the music down first, and then see where the melody takes you, or what vibe pops into your head. That's always how I've written the songs. And most of our material, I write it from as a storyteller. I don't really try to interject any of my personal feelings or my personal beliefs or anything like that. I more so try to put it across as a storyteller, or as if you were reading a science fiction book or a horror book or a drama book. I like to have that kind of disconnect where I'm just a vehicle writing the words. Whatever I say doesn't necessarily reflect my true feelings or my beliefs or whatnot. There are some songs that come from experience and personal experiences, songs like Bottle Called. Could that be a biography song to some degree? But it was at that point in time that a song like that was written based upon observations of other people in my life. And I've seen a lot, done a lot, and I use those experiences, and I kind of don't just pick one experience and say, write about it. I kind of just I'm influenced by a lot of outside things, and that's what comes through in my lyrics.
I had always wanted to ask you about that, especially like songs like Vampire's Curse, and thank you for.
Yeah, like Vampire's Curse, that was just kind of written. That was like, I kind of look at it as writing a movie, writing a script. Vampire's Curse, if I remember right, the story was a vampire that was, locked away for hundreds and hundreds of years, and he wakes up in a futuristic society. Oh, actually, I think that was the second Vampire's Curse song. The first Vampire's Curse song was actually like lamenting about being locked away, in a tomb and things like that.
Now, for a lot of people that are unfamiliar with the Koffin Kats and you, how would you describe your sound? How would you describe, of course, you as band, just to give them an idea to go check you out?
So perfect example. When we're sitting at Waffle House and somebody goes, "You guys a band?" And then, yeah. "Oh, what do you sound like?" Well, we can't exactly say, "Oh, have you ever heard of Metallica?" If only it was that easy. So what we usually say is, "Hey, are you familiar with the Stray Cats? Remember that song Stray Cat Strut?" And then usually the person will be like, "Oh, I know that song." And then we say, "Hey, are you familiar with Motorhead? That song Ace of Spades or whatever?" And then usually if somebody knows what that is, you can kind of say, "Hey, put those two together," and it kind of gives you the idea of what we sound like. Or if it's like we know somebody's going to be completely oblivious, we just say we're a rock and roll band, because at the end of the day, that's really what we consider ourselves, as a rock and roll band with a punk edge, and we have an upright bass. Yeah.
Now, I mean, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, that's a good description. And I also want to ask you, being on the subject of themes in your songwriting, what's your favorite horror movie?
My favorite horror movie, Evil Dead 2 is a movie that I watched in my teens probably about 250 times. I love Evil Dead 2. I love that. I love the whole Evil Dead series, but I just always Evil Dead 2 hit me at the right time, at the right spot, and that's just one of my favorite horror movie. And then followed up by Aliens and the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. when it comes to horror movies. But I will give one giant shout out to the movie Nope. I just watched that movie and I think it's absolutely fantastic because I haven't been watching any recent movies and I decided to give a new movie a chance and I was pleasantly surprised with that. Great original science fiction writing and with a great horror element to it. So if you haven't seen that movie Nope yet, I highly recommend it.
I actually haven't seen that. I haven't kept up with anything really current.
Yeah, and I don't either. I have this weird thing where I think South Park ruined it for me. When I have a hard time watching movies these days, modern movies, because for whatever reason, when I'm watching people on TV, it looks like people playing make believe. And I don't know why. I don't know what broke in my brain, but it's hard for me to watch any type of modern series because it seriously just looks like people playing make believe. Whereas watching old cheesy movies, even if the acting's bad, you still feel like you're watching a movie. And I don't know what it is with me, but I just have a hard time watching anything new.
um, actually, I'm sorry. Evil Dead 2 is actually my favorite horror movie too.
Oh, well, there you go.
Next, so I get it. I get that question a lot too, and I'm like, it's Evil Dead 2. Um, Army of Darkness, I consider it more of like a horror comedy.
Yeah. And I remember when Army of Darkness came out, I was a little kid and I remember my dad renting it and everything. And I thought it was cool and all that. But you, and here's another weird side note. The first movie I ever remember watching was actually Texas Chainsaw Massacre. My dad, for whatever great parenting, had me sitting on the couch watching that movie with him. And I vaguely remember the hammer scene and that always sticking with me as a little kid. So that probably messed me up. And that's probably why I'm here today.
It's okay. My parents didn't really like shelter me when it came to horror, so I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with the VHS of RoboCop, the ultra violent RoboCop. I grew up watching that too. So yeah.
Yeah, I had one of those. I'm sure you remember it, but for those that have no idea what the hell we're talking about, uh, in my room I had one of those like 19-inch TVs with the VHS player.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the movies I had was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I had that, the original one. I had Nightmare on Elm Street and Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And I had Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. So as a kid, I mean, that's pretty much all I had.
Right on. Yeah, I was always more of a Jason fan than a Freddy fan. And I don't know if you can remember back when cable was, everyone had cable still. The Friday the 13th on the USA network, they would actually do Friday the 13th marathons. And that was like the coolest thing for a little kid staying up late watching movies because couldn't always rent Friday the 13th. I wasn't old enough to rent Friday the 13th movies, but I could watch them if they were on cable TV. And my favorite out of that whole Friday the 13th series is the Jason Lives one where it's like Frank and Jason walking around. That's my favorite out of the whole series.
Really?
So, yeah.
Did you ever play the NES game?
Oh yeah, it used to scare the shit out of me. It probably still would if I have like one of those emulators that has it on there. So that game used to terrify me.
I actually still like attempt to play it, but I still attempt to fail at actually beating Jason. Like I've beaten him once,
Yeah.
but you have to beat him like 3 times.
Right.
And then by then you're out of counselors. So it's just a pain.
I was at a comic book shop. I don't know where it was, just randomly killing time before a show one time, and there was a comic book store next to the venue, and I saw they actually made the purple suit Jason action figure from that game. You could buy it. It's funny.
Yeah, I've actually seen that too.
Oh, right on.
Seen it. It comes in like a box and then it opens and it has like the Nintendo thing on it. Yeah, I've seen it. Didn't get it, but I've seen it. So this upcoming tour, I know that of course you're currently off right now, but I do know that you're starting up again
Yep, I leave next week.
next week, and you're playing with lower class brats.
That tour is actually that's the run after this current one. This next run actually takes us. We're doing a tour through the southeast down into Florida, and then looping back up to the Midwest up to Detroit. And we're taking out a great band called the Crank Daddies, and they're a great rock and roll, rockabilly, psychobilly band from the Chicago area. And so that's our next run, and then after that's going to be our tour in February, and then our tour in March actually takes us to the northwest and down the West Coast. And yes, for the one portion of that tour, we're actually playing with the lower class brats, which we're looking forward to. That was a band that we've always wanted to team up with, and it almost happened a couple times, and now it's actually happened.
Good band, actually one of my favorite bands too. I mean, I know that they're stationed in California now, but a lot of people probably don't remember that they were originally a Texas band.
Yeah, and I think that's how we first started talking to them. I remember Tommy actually was talking with those guys, and when they were Texas based, and that's how we were going to talk about doing some shows together, but it never came to fruition, and here we are now. So.
Yeah, they were also one of those bands that toured a lot.
Yes, yeah.
They've been to Japan, the UK. So I'm not sure what the current lineup is for lower class brats, but of course I know it's. I believe Marty's still in the band, and I believe Bones is still, of course, the singer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to hear how that tour goes. I won't be attending it because it's in California, and my schedule won't allow it in March. But I'm sure it's going to be an awesome show. I'm sure everyone's going to have a great time. Like I said, completely amazing band, and you guys are awesome as well. So I think it's going to be a good show, especially for that audience. It's going to be a good mix.
These are the cool things too, is that us as a band, we're always all about like teaming up with bands that have different crowds. Like we gladly play for anybody, but we don't always get the different kind of audience in front of us. And it's always cool to play with other bands that will bring like a completely different group of people out for us. And then, we're able to introduce ourselves to them as well. So that's why we always look forward to doing these kind of package tours and stuff.
It's going to be a good mix, honestly, because I'm very familiar with their sound as well. So I think their audience is going to, if they haven't heard you already, I think they're going to absolutely be into the Koffin Kats, and, vice versa. So, that being said, is there anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to talk about other than the EP? What can we expect on the new demo?
Yeah, well, so as it stands right now, our 2023 plans are we're going to continue to tour into the early summertime, and then our touring schedule lightens up during that time as we go back to work installing sprinkler systems in yards in Michigan here. But we do actually fly out and do some weekenders and stuff. I believe we're playing. I think it was just confirmed that we're playing during. We're not playing the event, but we're playing during the event of the Las Vegas Rockabilly Weekender. We're going to be playing at the billiards, backstage billiards venue that we've been playing at the last few times that we've done in Vegas. So that's the larger thing that we're doing during the summertime. But otherwise, we're continuing to tour up into the summer, and then during the summer we'll do some weekenders, and then in the fall time we'll be hitting the road again pretty heavy, playing playing all over the country, and then try to do some Canadian dates as well. No plans for Europe right now, but we will get back over there eventually. I just think it's going to happen this year. And then release wise, if all goes as planned, it just kind of depends upon how long the vinyl pressing process takes. Pressing vinyl has been really backed up since the pandemic, and so when you get your album done, you still kind of have to wait some months before you can really put it out, unless you want to just release it digitally, which we might do ahead of time. Have to wait for that vinyl to come back, because we love pressing stuff to vinyl. It takes some time to get back. So
Yeah, I mean, I collect vinyl, so I understand. Uh, I did not get the last EP when it came out on vinyl. Not gonna lie, I was a little salty about it. A little, just a tad, because I missed out on it. But I'll definitely get, the next one. And I believe
we actually just got the repressing of that EP vinyl. So next time we come back, we'll probably have it with us.
okay, cool. And yeah, I think Born of the Motor is still available on vinyl, I believe.
That one's probably easier to find. That one got a pretty wide pressing. When we press vinyl, it's usually 500 units at a time. The Born of the Motor, I think, had a couple thousand pressed. So it's a little bit more available.
Well, last question, and then we'll close it out. Musical influences for you as a vocalist.
As a vocalist, so when I was playing in bands, and then I started picking the upright bass up, I had no intention of being a singer. I couldn't sing. I didn't like my voice, and I just was like, I'm happy I'm going to be the bass player in the band. Well, when Koffin Kats came about, Tommy was like, well, I'm not going to sing. And then I was like, well, I don't really want to have more than a 3-piece, because it's hard enough keeping a 3-piece band together. And so I was like, well, that kind of leaves me with having to do the job, unless we're going to have the drummer sing, which, and if you're a band like the Chop Tops were, that works out perfectly. But we weren't going to have that kind of luck finding a drummer that could, be cool and sing at the same time. So I was like, all right, well, I'll try to figure this all out. And at that point in time, one of my favorite albums that I discovered that I could kind of sing along with was The Damned's Grave Disorder release, which I believe came out right around the 2000, 2001, 2002. And so I practiced along with singing with Dave Vanian. And I mean, I'd have to cite him as one of my main vocal influences, just because singing in his register made me realize, like, oh, okay, I can hit these notes. I can kind of sing. And then I just kind of had to figure my voice out on the fly. And it's funny because I can listen back to our first 3 recordings and hear where I didn't have control compared to how I know what to do now. And it's I can hear my vocal evolution personally through all of our releases, just because I was learning as I went.
I mean, that's just pretty much how anything works. I mean, you learn.
Oh, yeah.
You learn
I
as
mean,
you
I would hope at this point I've gotten better, and I'm realizing now, the older that I get, the deeper I can sing. But because I've trained myself, I can also sing higher. So what I have to remind myself of, though, and I learned this lesson almost on with recording the last EP, was, hey, when you're recording these songs, when you're singing, you're not necessarily playing the upright at the same time in the studio. So I have to remember, like, when I'm writing these songs and the aggression and the intensity that I'm singing with, I also have to remember that a lot of my onstage energy is also expended playing the upright bass. So, like, for example, we play the song Midnight from that EP, the You Can't Take It With You EP. We played Midnight live. And that song was a motherfucker to get down live at first, because I didn't realize, like, oh man, these notes are really hard to hit if you've already been huffing and puffing playing the bass and running around and whatnot. I mean, I can do it now, but that was like, hey, that might be your limit. But I know for a fact that when I do this next batch of songs, I'm still going to just keep pushing it, because that's always how I've been, is just push myself. And, we try to keep it realistic to that we can recreate these things on stage. but also try to make a studio album a listening experience.
Like I said, this last EP, I really enjoyed it. Very clean as far as how it was produced, the delivery. Like I said, I really enjoyed all the songs. So, and as far as your vocals, like I've always said, to people that I always thought you had an amazing voice. So there was no need to be like self-conscious about it. But uh I always thought that's why I always like stated that you were one of my top favorite vocalists of all time. So I was really excited to actually get you here and actually interview you, in my career of doing interviews, this is probably one of the ones I was most excited for.
All right on. Well, I'm happy to be a part of it.
Oh, well, thank you. So that's it for us here today. I'm Ashley Rosanova. You can find me at TWM. You can find me on Twitter, every social media except for MySpace because that's not a thing anymore.
I wish it was. I miss MySpace.
Yeah.
For a band, it was the best thing because we could have all of our tour dates listed on a front page and all of our music. It was very, very straightforward and simple for people to find out about you. And then Facebook had to go and ruin all of that.
Now we have all kinds.
Too, they got a little too fancy towards the end there and took away the basic layout.
It was nice. It was
that's the one thing that's the one thing I've come to understand is that you need to make things as basic and bold print as possible for people to see when it comes to advertising your stuff or putting your tour dates out there, because every time we finish up a tour, say we just came back from Texas, always when we post more dates, somebody will go, "You guys never come to Texas," and be like, all of our stuff was there online, easy to find. But
and then there's a person like me that's like, they always come to Texas. Like,
yeah.
But where can people
that being said, Koffin Kats, you can find all of our confirmed shows on koffinkatsrock.com. That's Koffin Kats with K's. We're on the Instagram, the Facebook. I think we have a Twitter page too. So we're on all the social media stuff. We have an online presence that's easy to find if you want to look for it.
So there you have it. Thank you, Vic, for being here. And of course, everyone go check them out. Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much everywhere you can find or listen to your music, your choice. They're on there. Trust me. They're on every single one.
Yeah, we're on platforms I've never even heard of.
There you go.
Like, I don't know what Deezer is, but we're on it.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
I see when I get our statements, or I see like all the different platforms that we're on, and different countries have different platforms and whatnot. So we are truly worldwide available.
I have never heard of that platform, but all right. Thank you, Vic.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to the next time.